Well, this is very nice for me to be back in the Generate Radio studios, and thanks to Kyle and Oscar for the loan of the studios to do this interview. I have sitting in front of me do I call you Anna or do I call you Electric?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That hasn't been properly established. I think I'm just called Electric Penelope.
Electric Penelope. It's I've been playing one of your songs as my track of the month throughout the month of February. But we'll come to that later. Thank you, as I say, for coming in here.
Oh, thank you.
And as I usually do with interviews, I like to do a bit of background research to find out a bit about who I'm speaking to. And the one thing that really stands out to me is this romantic, or at least as I see it, this romantic notion that you spent your childhood living above a jazz club.
That's right,
in London. Now, what was the reality of that like? Is it as romantic as I think it was?
Well, I think it was pretty romantic. It wasn't my entire childhood. We moved around quite a lot as a child. And that was just another aspect of my childhood, was living above a nightclub. So it was during those years when when you're really soaking up information, and they're the most sort of influential years. So it was about the time, probably from 11 or 12 until about 15 or so, that I was living above the cafe, because it was a cafe in the day and it was a nightclub at night. So now it doesn't sound like a very long time, but at the time as a child that was, a long time to. Well, so yes. It had a real big impact on me. But yes, it did have that kind of bohemian, quirky feel about it. Well, when I look back, at the time it was just normal. It was just normal home. That's normal life.
You would have thought, well, this is just like everyone else lives.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that it wasn't like everybody else, because I did used to look at other people's homes and just be like, well, why can't I just have a normal house? But because it was a really old, crooked building, and it had the railway line used to go almost cut through it. So the top floors were always shaking. They came back by every 2 minutes. And and so I was completely used to just having that whole... Have you the Blues Brothers, where there's a cafe and it's got the train? It was exactly like that, where everything rattles as they go past. But customers seemed to like it. They kind of found it comforting. The whole feel of the place was very nightclubby, as in, candles, pictures completely utterly covering the wall, things hanging from the ceiling, complete sort of mishmash of everything.
Right. And as you say, the age you were at, that if I can remember that far back, that is, everything just seemed to go on and on forever. A year's time, 2 years' time, that just always seemed so far off. So it must have had a great effect on forming your musical future.
It really did, because I went to sleep with music. That was quite normal, to go to sleep and you could hear downstairs the bass playing, especially. You could sort of hear the brushes and stuff like that. Very just used to hearing live music to go to sleep. Live music and trains. To go to sleep.
There's no escaping trains in London. Well, at least the impressions I'm getting of London, my daughter is now living there, and spend a lot of my time when I'm down there visiting her. We're on the train, so I can see these houses you're talking about. Yeah. You could almost reach out and touch and see them shaking as we
one
go
of
by.
The bedrooms, it was probably only about 10 foot away, the actual train. So when you open the curtains in the morning, sometimes they would stop outside and you could just see them.
It's a nice place to visit, but I don't think I would like to live there. But that brings me to my next question. And you're now not living in London. You're living in rural North Northumberland, Berwick-Upon-Tweed. How do you find the contrast between your life in London?
Yeah, I had a little experience of it. It was another of my parents' adventures, which they took us on, which happened... I can't... now, hang on, when would this have been? We had a little stint where we were living in London, and then we all moved up to Duns, in fact, for 2 years. And then we all moved back down again to the nightclub, those 2 years, were the equivalent of about quarter of my life. So it was, again, had a massive impact. But it was completely and utterly strange coming to the countryside. The main thing was not having the noise. When you're used to having noise and then it's quiet, it's not peaceful.
Yeah.
It's really disturbing because it's quiet, and going to sleep, that took me quite a long time to get used to going to sleep with, to silence, to absolute silence. So I'd had that little practice run, and then we all went back down to London again, and I came up about 10 years ago now. So it's similar things. I've got more used to it now, but it's completely different. I've got family, I've got children, and so the whole experience of being in the countryside is positive. It was positive before, but it's completely different. It's the children, completely thrive here, and I could not bear the idea of bringing up children in London. I really couldn't.
I think I'm with you on that. Having been a teacher, I don't think I would like to teach them down there either. It's just,
I mean, I left 10 years ago, and I'm sure, it sounds like it's 10 times worse.
Yeah. But one of the other things I read was that you're part of a big musical family. Mm-hmm. When did you first start to play music yourself?
Well, I only started singing fairly recently, in the last 3 or 4 years. But we've always had a piano in the house. My mum's a pianist, so we've always had a piano in the house, and we've all sort of fiddled about on the piano and all familiar with how music works. But none of us, well, I think I've got 9 brothers and sisters. Only about 2 of us have actually learned to read music, and I'm not one of them.
Right.
Which it was a real shame, actually, because I know that it would make songwriting so much quicker if I could just get it down, the melody, so the music side of things a lot quicker, because I have so many ideas with music, and I can quite easily just sing them along, which is fine, just come out and sing them, but it's getting other people to then play them. Right. That's the difficulty. Yes, we're all musical. Music is just a very natural part of my childhood and my early life. So when I did decide to songwrite and sing, it wasn't a huge change. It was like I just decided to actually do it rather than just have it as part of my life. So it was a bit smooth transaction.
Good. And going back to your time with the jazz club, because I have a fascination about it. I used to do a graphic design project at school, which was based on coming up with designs for a Scottish jazz club called Scatland.
Right. Okay.
But were there any scat singers there? No. Or on a more serious note, what are your main memories of the music that was played in that club?
Well, I wasn't always allowed to go down because obviously I was underage. Yeah. I was about 14. I would work in the day, but at night time I would sometimes tiptoe down, and you'd sort of stand on the side, and my parents would pretend that they couldn't see me. But the memories that I have were, those times when we were allowed to come down for whatever reason. They weren't so strict then about rules. Ian Shaw, I remember Ian Shaw, who's actually now a really, really fabulous, well-established jazz musician, pianist. In fact, he was playing at the Maltings on the main stage, and he was just starting out when I was young. So there's been quite a few of those people that I remember. But the buzz that there was when you went downstairs... Yeah. And there was a piano. It was just an upright piano, and they always had like a bass, an upright bass, and guitar, and it was often piano and drums and stuff like that. And you were allowed to smoke in those days as well. Yes. So it was that real atmosphere of just really laid back, chilled out music. And that's kind of the memories of it. Is looking back, it's exactly how you imagine that really cliche jazz nightclub.
I'm getting a picture in my mind of one of the opening scenes in Lady Sings the Blues, when young Billie Holiday sneaks across the road and is fascinated and captivated by the music and the goings on in this club. So.
Yeah, and it was very sort of unconventional. It was the place was just very unconventional. It was a real evolution of style. So things like the toilets, it was sort of encouraged to graffiti on the toilets. Yeah. But it was all really kind of arty things. Yeah. So it was poetry and quotes and all sorts of things. There was never any filthy language, but it was absolutely covered in like fabulous writing. Whenever anybody came in there and things like that, and there was a little extension at the back which was a storeroom, and we needed the space to extend the cafe. So my dad put everything that was on the floor and tied it to the ceiling. And so the ceiling was completely covered in boots and chairs and a bit of everything. But anyway, it just meant there was lots of space on the floor, so it kind of then spread through there. But it was a great place, and
very idiosyncratic. It sounds like not part of a big chain.
No, not at all. In fact, one of the rules my dad had, which was on the door, said no celebrities. And he refused to let any celebrities in, although a lot of the time he didn't know that they were celebrities. Yeah, because it was, I didn't either, but there were various filmings that would go along around there, and then we realised that was kind of the cool place to come afterwards. So there's people like Helen Bonham Carter and Daniel Day-Lewis and people like that would sort of be wandering in and out. It was a cool time.
Good. Can I move on to your music now, and in particular your lyrics? Where have you got your main inspiration from? Is it one place or is it?
Well, it's just what I've experienced. So that's all I can write about. It's I never write anything abstract or from anybody else's point of view. And I never write about, a historical event or which some people can do brilliantly. But I can only write about what I know. Otherwise, it does just come out completely fake. So my whole album, A New Day, is just very ordinary, normal, everyday things that I'm writing about. That stemmed actually from writing a diary. I've written a diary from the age of 9. I got my first Roald Dahl diary, which had pictures by Quentin Blake all over it. It was fabulous. And anyway, so I kept then a diary for years and years into my teens, every day. And then anyway, I sort of gradually fizzled out once I'd got married and was busy with other things. And then it was replaced really by songwriting. So my songwriting is very much like a diary, where it's just very, today this happened. Today I felt like this. Today it's sunny. It's all those kind of things.
The skill of somebody like yourself is to take something that many of us might think is so ordinary, so mundane, but you can make it so magical and just paint a picture we enjoy listening.
I hope so. That's nice of you to say. I think one of the reasons people remember the songs when they hear them is because they are about ordinary things, so it's easy to empathise.
Yeah.
It's easy to relate to. You listen to a song like The Innocent Ones or something, where I'm just talking about what it was like when we were young. Yeah. Everybody was young once. Everybody can relate to it. It's just a very stereotypical reminiscence of being young. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. and the music, the style of music, I find is particularly timeless. It's not something that you feel is 21st century or 20th century. Or it could have been written in the 1960s, in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Is there any influences that have led you to that style?
That's just because I had such a broad influence myself on music. We never listened to a specific style as a child. My mum listened to classical music. She was a pianist herself. So I remember when I was very young being very familiar with Swan Lake and just listening to it on record and dancing around the room, and Peter and the Wolf. Those two ones were the ones that were just the absolute, they're completely ingrained in me. But then my dad's influence, which is where the nightclub came from, was jazz, blues, soul, R&B, all that kind of thing. But then there was just the radio. When you have the radio on all the time, which we always did, you just get so familiar with every genre of music. And it is one of the reasons why it's hard to define my music, because I can't define it myself. And it's just because it's got every type of influence. I not deliberately, but I'll just do it, and then I'll be like, yes. and then I'll start to think, I know where I got that from. And when I listen back to any of my own songs, I always listen to them and think I might have come up with the words and the melody, but I would never say that my songs, I truly wrote them myself, because everything that I absorb just goes into the song, and I can hear it myself. I'll be like, oh, that's this, or that's that, or that's the other. And sometimes it's a bit like, damn it, I thought that was original. But most of the time you think, actually, nothing's original.
We don't live in a vacuum. You can't help but be influenced by other things, whether you want to or not. Moving a bit more up to date, I suppose, your album was launched last October, around about the time of Berwick's Frontier Festival.
That's right, yeah.
How you played a part in the Frontier Festival. How big a boost do you feel Frontier Festival has been to the Berwick music scene, North Northumberland?
That's been so good. What I felt the Frontier Festival did is that it just highlighted how much talent there actually is in the area, and it just gave all that talent a platform, to show off that Berwick, the music side of Berwick. Because I've always, I've been here 10 years, but it's probably only about 4 years ago that I suddenly discovered the music scene in Berwick. And as soon as you find it there, it's vast, and there is so much.
Yes.
There's so many musicians, there's so much musical talent. And there's so much kind of innovation as well. And the musicians, they really support each other. There's a real feeling of, if I do a gig, there's never a sort of a negative thing of we don't go and support that. All the musicians support each other, which is really unusual, because there's no kind of backstabbing like that. And there's a real camaraderie about the music. But Frontier Festival, it just really highlighted that. The music was already there, and Frontier Festival just brought it together and was like, look, have a look at this, to the rest of the country. So hopefully that's what it will carry on doing every year, is just say, look, Berwick is the place where new music is springing from.
And your own performance, how would you critique it? Were you happy with it?
Oh, I was absolutely over the moon with it. It couldn't have gone any better. It was a lot of work. We started preparing for it, a good 6 months beforehand. I was also recording the actual album, and once that had been done and established, it was 12 piece on the stage.
So it was a major undertaking.
Yeah, it was. Because once I had decided to go solo, which was last January, and that was a really hard decision. It was a really big deal for me, and it was a really difficult time to go. It sounds really silly, but it's to go from being a band to going solo is really daunting and really depressing, because you're suddenly on your own. Yeah. It was like, it was like splitting up with my boyfriend or something. No, it's true. Yeah. But then I was kind of like, right, I can't get down in the dumps about this. I have to pull out all the stops and do the absolute best that I can. And so I did. And it could not have gone any better. The string section, fabulous backing singers, the best musicians that I could find, the very best. And it was all, the reason why it was so successful is because the people who I got involved were the one, I couldn't pay anybody. The people who were involved were doing it because they loved my music. Yeah. They loved the idea of the project, the idea of the music and the whole community thing. And it meant that the people that were involved were doing it because they really, really wanted to do it. None of them had to do it. Right. They were doing it because they really wanted to do it. And that really made a difference. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
I'm just wondering if you have a fear now that it can only go down if it was that good. But sure,
the thing is, because that was just one part of it, and because I truly believed that it was going to go well, it did. And as soon as it was done, I wrote another album.
Great. I'll look forward to that. But can we stick with A New Day first of all? That was released around at Frontier Festival time. How has it been received in the months since then?
Well, it was received brilliantly. I sold lots of CDs, got lots of downloads. It's on iTunes as well. And then suddenly, because the show itself was so professionally done, I suddenly gained I kind of gained a different level of respect from other professionals. You know, it was, nobody expected it to be at the level that it was. That, you know, it just wasn't expected to be. And so from that point of view, it was such a massive confidence boost that people felt that it was so professional, that it then gave me that confidence to be like, well, I am. You know, I can actually say that now. I can say that I'm professional because professionals are recognising it themselves as a professional performance. Yeah, because I also had the best sound engineer as well on that night. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going back. But the CD itself is done well, and the winter season's been very quiet. I kind of had to regenerate myself after quite a busy year. So I sort of just left everything for a few weeks, not very long. And you know, selling CDs, selling all those things, it depends heavily on gigs. You can't sell things just hope that people will buy them because you put something on Facebook.
You've got to get in front of people.
Yeah.
But you now have a marvellous video to help promote
that's right,
one of the songs as well. Yeah,
that was 88 Photography who did that, which was Philip Hayward. He was doing the filming. Just a real enthusiastic music lover.
He is, and he's got a tremendous talent and eye for picking up great detail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he had this real vision of what he would like to do with the video and how he sort of interpreted what the song was about. Because Scorpion is quite different to the rest of the songs in that, you know how I was saying I don't talk abstractly about things. That's the only one that kind of slightly veers towards that side of songwriting where I'm not saying I'm saying she. I'm talking about somebody else. And but that meant it gave a real freedom to be quite dramatic and theatrical for the actual video and for the song. The song, me and Ian Petrie had so much fun producing that because it could have gone in so many directions, and it ended up having that real kind of full-on orchestral Spanishy continental feel to it. And that's why we were kind of like, this will be perfect for a video because there's a lot of space to do anything, to create a story. It's not stuck to, you know, me just singing about me.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed being able to include it in every show this month.
No, thank you.
But we're getting near the end of the month. I'll have to start looking around for another one. What are your plans for the future? You've said you've written another album. I take it still has to be worked on and recorded
and everything like that. Yeah. No, I finished. Process. Yeah, no, exactly. I finished it in January, and I was like, right, I'm going to go and do my other album. And then when I have an idea, I just want to get it going and get it rolling. And I had to be rational about it. And I've decided to do it after November. I'm going to get started on producing it. I'm going to produce this one entirely myself. A New Day was co-produced with Ian Petrie. Yeah. And this one, I'm going to produce it entirely myself just because I love learning new skills. And I learned a lot when I was doing the producing this album with Ian. And so I want to give myself a good, you know, however long it is between now and November to completely and utterly learn the technical side of production. I already know how to arrange and all that side of things. And now I just want to do the kind of engineering side of things because there's not very many female producers at all around. There's such a tiny percent. And so I'd really like to do that side of things. So anyway, I kind of have to put that off because I have to promote A New Day. Yes. And so that's kind of what I'll be concentrating on. But yeah, I can't tour really on a large scale because I've got children. Yeah. I have to be in the centre. So the plan is to do London, Edinburgh and Newcastle just to keep people's interests up. I've got lots of connections in London already, so that would work. And then I've just got a few other gigs lined up around this area. I've got a fabulous one, which is this is who I'm meeting afterwards. After I've been here, I'm going over to meet Tony Kime. He's the conductor for the Scottish Romance Orchestra. And in November, we're doing a big show together where we're teaming up. So it's going to be Electric Penelope and the Scottish Romance Orchestra, and he's arranging my music for orchestra.
Right.
So that's going to happen at the Maltings, on the main stage at the Maltings in November. But that's going to take a lot of preparation, see. In fact, I'm going to start applying for PRS funding and arts funding and things like that, because that's going to involve a lot of people, and it's going to be a really big, glamorous night. That's kind of the one of the projects that I'm looking towards doing. Sorry, I'm just really blabbering on, aren't I?
That's the whole point of my interviews. I like to just sit here and let other people speak. But finally, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, which I'd love to hear, but I seem to be finding there's an awful lot of female singers at the moment who are going by assumed names, such as previous artists I've played, Dimbleby and Capper, Saint Saviour. You're Electric Penelope, but you're not Electric Penelope. Why did you choose to perform under the name Electric Penelope, and what was the inspiration behind that name?
Well, it was quite simple to start with. When I first started writing songs, I was just really feeling my way, and I didn't know what direction of the style of music, where it was going to go, whether it was going to be fun and silly or whether to really take it seriously. So I kind of wanted to have the freedom to be able to experiment without people knowing that it was me. And that was the idea. And it's a small town. I thought I'd just come up with a different name. It means I could post things on the internet. I could put things out, and it wouldn't matter if people did or didn't like it, because who would know it was me anyway? But that lasted for about 2 days. And then everybody knew it was me. Right. But when it comes to performance or interviews or anything like that, or self-promotion, which is, a really major part of doing any kind of business or enterprise, it's much easier to have an assumed name, because it's difficult to just go up to somebody and say, "Oh, listen to my music; it's really good."
That's interesting.
And it's actually much easier to have two personalities, and actually get into your head. I'm being Electric Penelope right now. I can say outrageous things, and it doesn't. It's Electric Penelope who's doing it. It's a bit like that on stage as well. I've done acting before. As soon as you put a wig on or a costume, you can actually be really quite, you're very liberated in what you can do. And it's the same idea with Electric Penelope, and where it's, I've got my Anna person, which is just me being my mother, being my mother, being a mother. Oh my gosh, Freudian slip. Being a mother.
That's a whole other interview, is it?
Yeah. And then I can switch, and I go into Electric Penelope mode, and I can just be a little bit more free. I'm not restrained by the conventional things.
I remember speaking to Laura Bettinson, who I've mentioned as Dimbleby and Capper. She assumed this name because she felt she was doing different music, so she didn't want to be the new stuff to be confused with what she'd done before. And then she gave up that persona and moved on to Femme, because she felt the music had progressed.
Well, that's the other reason
so,
as well. It does give you a real sort of freedom to do that. I've got other things at the back of my mind, and I have recorded them, for example, where they wouldn't go under Electric Penelope. I've written so many songs that I've got a whole other album that I would never put under Electric Penelope. It goes under Mrs. Galan. But that's again a whole other story. And I just like to write. I love the idea of cinematic music. I really love John Barry. All his music. It's just absolutely fabulous. But that side of things, I would love to go down that road as well. That's another project with a whole other different type of music. Cinema music, film music. Yeah, so it means that you can just put them under different names.
Yeah, and it's like giving different projects.
Different it means you're just never restricted. If I'd used my real name, it would be a total nightmare trying to do all those things.
Yeah, and I suppose it's like putting a hat on. It helps you get in the right frame of mind for whatever it is you're doing at the time. Well, Anna, or Electric Penelope, or Mrs. Galand. This room's full of people here now. Thanks very much for taking the time out to come in and speak to me.
No problem. Thank you so much for asking me to come along.
I'm just happy to help support local talent. Well, not so local talent, but
yeah, I don't think I'll ever be called a local, will I? I've been here 10 years, but
I've been 33 years here. But no,
are you local yet?
In some ways, I feel I've never been anywhere else.
Yeah.
In other ways, no, I don't suppose we are. But it's
I
certainly have never found the Borders to be one of these places where you're never accepted because you weren't born within the town boundaries or something.
Yeah, no, I don't feel
it's
that.
It's all fairly laid back.
Yeah, no, I feel welcome. I do feel welcome here. But the locals will tell me yourself, oh, you'll never be a local.
But then you've got the difference between Berwick and Spittal. They don't, they don't see themselves as the same. Yeah. We were coming back from London the other weekend, and just as the train was approaching Berwick, I was speaking to a couple of guys beside me and said, "Oh, that's us getting off here." "Why are you getting off at Berwick? There's nothing there, man." But there's so much happening here. Yeah. It's Berwick, Northumberland, Scottish Borders. It's just
there is. There's a lot of creative.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creative talent. There are things about Berwick where they don't move quickly. I think that goes with any small town. Yeah. They kind of get forgotten about, unfortunately, by the government.
But at the same time, some people are too quick to move on, and they think if it's not brand new, it's no good. But that can be a flaw. That can be a flaw.
Yeah,
as well,
no, it's true. Yeah, it might not move quickly, but the things that are going on are very much alive, and that's the kind of important part.
Well, thank you very much. I feel we could go on and on. But I know you've got other things to do. I don't want to keep you, but it's...
Well, thank you very much, Donald, for asking me along. It's been really nice.
I look forward to getting a chance to play more of your music in the future. And,
can I just...
And maybe one of these days I'll actually see you playing in person. Yeah. Sorry, you...
I was just going to say there's just one little gig that I'm going to be doing, which is quite exciting. It's not actually a gig, it's a support slot with Jenny Murray. If anybody's a fan of Jenny Murray, she's the Radio 4 broadcaster. She does Woman's Hour, if anybody's familiar with that. But she's somebody who I grew up with listening on the radio my entire childhood. Right. And then I was asked to come and do some support with her on her show, which she's going to be doing at the Maltings. That's the 4th of May and the 3rd of May at the Annick Playhouse. Right. It will only be 3 or 4 songs. So the main reason is to go and see Jenny Murray, but I'm extremely excited and nervous about doing this gig. It's my first step towards, working with a real BBC professional. So it's really exciting. Anyway, sorry.
Thank you. No problem.
Thank you so much, Donald. Right.